This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I would like to welcome back an old friend of Good Food Revolution, winemaker Mr. Ian Hongell. How are you, Ian?
I'm well, Jamie. How are you?
Great, absolutely fantastic. It's just good to see your face again because it's been such a long time. Now,
It's been, yeah, it's been,
when we last saw each other, you were working for another organization in the Barossa. But right now, and since 2017, you have been with Torbreck, the mighty Torbreck. How has that been? Was that like a sea change for you in your life? Because they're quite different houses, despite the fact they both come from the same region.
yeah, it's been an incredible change to move across in 17. I'd spent 18 years with Peter Lehman, and a little bit of the landscape changed there, and an opportunity came up to join Torbreck, and yeah, I really feel like I've never looked back. It's flying now, 6 vintages in, and really pursuing a wine passion that I've been, wanting to become part of, and just chasing all the things that I really seek to create in wine.
Now, give me an honest answer here. What were your opinions of Torbreck before you actually joined the business?
Well, our family had grown grapes for them for over 20 years, so I was always connected in a sort of secondhand way to the brand through our family's vineyard. So I guess I'd admired from afar what they were achieving, and certainly very much loved the wine style. And yeah, it was not so much of joining to change it all or revolutionise what was going on, but to just to come in and kind of slide myself into the fabric and become part of it.
Now, when you mentioned the wine style, I've tasted Torbreck from perhaps one of their very first vintages, and I've always thought that they were very unashamedly powerful wines, but with a certain verve, vitality, and texture that I didn't really find in too many other Barossa wines. And I believe that over your vintages there, you've actually honed that somewhat, and the wines are just so vibrant and so alive in a way that is sometimes lacking for me in some wines from the Barossa.
Yeah, look, there's our style is really about sort of pushing the spectrum of flavour that and texture that the region can create, and so really trying to find, I guess, the extremes of what the soils and the sites can do for the vineyards, and allow those wines to sort of go to places that you wouldn't normally take them, and so you do get a very textural style. You do get a very a powerful style and expressive style of wine is what we're trying to create, and really what I've tried to do in the last few years is, as I've sort of slowly got my head around what it is that we're doing, is to just capture that and have it expressed in a sort of very positive way and a very vibrant way. And I think that sort of gives you the balance of having all that energy and power, but then having wines that actually really pop and have incredible fragrance as well. So that's been the journey that we're trying to take the wine styles towards. And it's not so much of a change in style, but just a refinement of where we're trying to head.
Indeed. Now, you source the majority of your fruit from Western and Northern Barossa, right?
Correct.
And you make a whole range of wines with some rather amusing Scottish names, which we're not going to get into today, but it's something that I always find, coming from Scotland myself, find it quite amusing. We may get onto that later. But you make a whole load of single vineyard wines as well as blends from across the region, right?
Correct. So we're really specialising in old vine Shiraz and old vine varieties, Mataro and Grenache. And why that's really important is because many of the vineyards we're working with were planted at the time of settlement of our region, so from the 1850s onwards. These are old dry grown planted vineyards that are on original rootstock. So there's no rootstock in the vineyards we're working with. They're all our own roots, and they tend to be found in the extremes of the region. So in the highest points, in the rockiest points, in the sort of the widest and most northern and southern points of the district. So you tend to be on the fringe of the climatic variables of where we're sourcing fruit from, and those extremes tend to amplify the characteristics of the vineyards we're working with.
Now, if you have vines that are on their own rootstocks going back to 1858 or thereabouts, what kind of yields are you getting from the vines at that point?
Yeah, so this really comes into the sustainability conversation around what we're doing and the way that we grow vines. So the yields are actually quite viable, which is, is often a misunderstood thing about vines, that they get older and older and older, and that the yields go down and down and down, and eventually you just, it's not worth keeping the vine because they just don't grow any grapes. Well-kept vineyards on great sites that are managed correctly still continue to yield, and their yields are contemporary with more modern planted vineyards, say of 30 years of age. We are a living snapshot of sustainability in action, and the way that we manage our vineyards. Well, the fact that we're working with 170-year-old vineyards, is the biggest tick of sustainability we can have. And in fact, these old vineyards, we're actually resurrecting them back into where we have missing vines and broken vines and diseased vines. We're actually healing and repairing these vineyards and actually bringing them back to having original planting numbers per acre, now being represented on the actual plots.
And is that propagation from those original vineyards where they're planting into themselves, basically?
Yeah, so we connect a vine to the parent vine, and it becomes, if you like, a source vine for the new vine to be viable and sustainable, and it allows it to live and not be beaten out of existence through competition. So it's it's not a technique that's exclusive to our region or certainly to Torbreck, but it's, we value these sites so much that we're spending the time and the money to invest in, repropagating and rebirthing missing vines or diseased vines.
So I spoke earlier about blends that come from various different sites across Barossa. You also blend between different varieties. And your top wine, I guess, the Runrig, is actually a blend normally of 6 different sites?
Correct. So Runrig is, when you're drinking a bottle of Runrig, you're drinking a wine that is made from some of the oldest living vines in the world. So, what's the point of difference? Well, that's a starting point. And then it's done in a Torbreck style and a Torbreck fashion that makes it incredibly detailed with complexity and aromatics, but then also the generosity of Barossa coming through on the palate, where you have the density and the weight and the texture. So that really is the signature of our style, and it's also the pedigree of what our vineyard sourcing is all about, and really one of the things that makes Torbreck quite famous.
How much of an impact does vintage have upon the wines of Torbreck?
Yeah, it's the last 5 years have been extraordinarily different, and I think you can see that really clearly in the wines themselves. And like any region, whether it's hot or cool or wet or frosty, will have an impact on the wines that are made. And we herald our vintages by the season that preceded them. So it has 100% impact on everything that we do.
Now, you make a wide variety of different varieties of grape. You produce wines from quite a number of them. I don't want to ask you this in a kind of strange way, but do you have a favorite to produce, and which do you find the most challenging?
Uh, well, the hardest wine, I think, not the hard, well, maybe it is. A wine that requires an extraordinary amount of attention is often the wines that are quite small for us, which are white wines. They actually require a bit of extra focus, and also rosé. But putting that aside, just as a weighting on their, I guess, their quantity, my favourite wines to make would be, without question, Shiraz. I think you see year on year that those wines express what this region is all about. But wines that we actually have a lot of fun with is really Grenache. And Grenache is really, it's a very transparent variety that really takes on the personality of the site that it comes from. And, you can really sort of see the difference between wines grown on sand versus wines grown in stone. And they really sort of take on the DNA of where they come from with quite clarity. And that's quite exciting when you line up a group of Grenaches that are from all over the region, and you can just sort of see the differences, and you can really feel and see that the place they came from and the effect that had on the actual wines themselves.
I'm glad you said Grenache, because that's a variety that's really exciting me from the Barossa right now. When I taste Barossa Shiraz alongside, say, Northern Rhone, Côte-Rôtie, Hermitage, Saint-Joseph, they're like chalk and cheese. They're very different wines. There's definitely a Barossa style and there's a Northern Rhone style. When it comes to Grenache, however, I have in blind tastings tasted a number of Barossa Grenache that I have mistaken for being Southern Rhone wines.
Yeah, look, that's I think there's it's hard to get people to get their head around this, but there's a lot of similarities between sort of Châteauneuf du Pape and Barossa as far as the climes go and the soil types. I mean, they're both actually quite warm regions, and if you have the ability to grow grapes in a similar way, as when I'm talking in yield and picking regime and things like that, the fingerprint of the variety shines through, whether it comes from a part of the Southern Rhone or the Barossa Valley.
If someone were a real Barossa Grenache enthusiast, which of the wines from Torbreck should I be looking at?
Well, we make 3 single vineyard Grenaches. So the Les Amis is a site is the west of our winery, and it's in hills. It's grown in red clays and bluestone, and it's an incredibly powerful and expressive Grenache. It has a lot of structure and real concentration. This is a tiny production. We're talking like 100 cases of wine, and then right near the winery on the other side of the hill that the laird has grown on, we actually have a vineyard called Harris Grenache, which is really dark fruited and has a very strong firm tannin line and takes fruit into a sort of a black spectrum of flavour profile. And then if you want, we can head down south to Lindau and you can try the Hillside Grenache, which is a really expressive sort of red fruited, creamy, flowing style Grenache, which sort of shows wines grown off chalk and more sandier soils. And they're three very different expressions of what Grenache can be, and I think those 3 wines for us showcase the diversity of our sites and the type of wines that we can create.
Superb. I'm hoping the next time you make it up to Ontario, you can bring some of these Grenache for me to taste.
Well, there's a little thing called your government, and
oh yes, yeah. You're more familiar with that. Yes.
And they can make things a little difficult to bring into your country, but we would love to share them with you, and we'll continue to ask the question.
Super. Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Great to see your smiling face again, Ian, and we'll catch up again in person sometime soon, I hope.
Awesome, Jamie. Thanks, mate.
Super.